Right, and so here we are. I've swapped out the ring for, so we've got mana regen and health regen. And honestly, I'm not sure if it's like burn resist or fire resist or ignite resist I need against him, or all three or whatever. I've got some fire resistant armor on, so hopefully that's sort of enough-ish, I guess. Maybe it is, maybe it ain't. Either way, we're going through. But I think the health regen will help. Just to save us having to like cast Sanctuary and things during the fight, because we're a bit... Our mana recovers, but it does so very slowly. We could take this off, obviously, but then we'd be a bit stuck. Look for parasites. Nasty, umbral parasites.
Why do you refuse to open your eyes to their manipulations?
So it can't be any of them. It has to be the ones that
of the truth.
have been woken up in a fire.
I stood as mankind's guardian, shepherding them with wisdom and love. Yet in return, I was betrayed. Those three power-hungry malfactors who declared themselves judges turned my own children against me and waged a terrible war of needless slaughter. The judges and their crazed followers butchered those who remained loyal to me. And when I created the Rogar as a means to put an end to the madness, they too were no match for the heathen forces.
Still none of them are active.
Although the judges found themselves unable to kill a god, despite their best efforts.
Swung at me. See, not. This one's active.
The world left blackened and corpse-choked by their crusade. The judges banished me to this barren ground, which has served as my prison.
Get dead.
Meanwhile, mankind set about ruling themselves, free from the divine oppression of which they accused me. And yet, how much time passed before the judges themselves were raised to the status of demigods, figures of worship, no real ambition, or to clear. Yet an outcome. The people deluded themselves into believing in triumph. How much blood has been spilled in their names since my banishment? Far more than was ever spilled in my name. And now, after all the time mankind
I really hate how they just suicide themselves when you kill them.
See what they have made of it. War, greed, hatred, suffering, chaos. They believed they were capable of guiding themselves, but have been proven sorely mistaken. Mankind hates me now more than ever.
How old? Little bits, right. Heal complete. Let's get on this one now.
Other beings who claim godhood, where are they? What of Aureus and the abhorrent umbral creature? They are cowards, hiding in false light and obfuscating shadow, deeming you unworthy of their presence, their communion. And yet, here I stand before you, true words.
Heal. There we go.
of my children, even the wayward ones. Listen to me. You must stop this before you allow yourself to condemn all of mankind for eternity. I am not your enemy, only what my own enemies fear. The loss of the dominion they have established for themselves in my absence. Cease your misguided violence.
Right.
Now. You are in the
lot of
presence
heals
of
here.
a god-human.
Not just touching that crap sets on fire. Well, not just sets on fire, but absolutely messes you up.
Destroy you. Yet you
Ah, there we go.
defy my will. The world in which you exist is my world, my home, and yet mankind, my own creation,
They're all bunched up, so that's quite
exiled me
good hit,
from
that one.
You have no idea what it is to suffer such a monstrous betrayal, or to endure the ages of torment which follow.
Right. Get that because it allows me to one tap. Right. Oh, I guess we did something different this time.
I look upon you with pity, my lost child. For you have been deceived and enslaved by forces who regard you as nothing more than an instrument through which they might enact their blasphemous will and prevent my rightful return.
Is there something I'm missing? No. We got him. Are we sucking them into the lamp? Ghostbusters style. Does my lamp get upgraded? The light of the humble lamp knows no satiation, consuming even a god. Orius's will, done by his heresy-tainted champion, rewarded only with annihilation. With renewed influence, Orius unleashes his radiance to purify those deemed transgressors. In light, they all. Reached the radiant ending. Hey! But you could probably... You kind of guess it. It's like, yeah, it's going to do the old switcheroo where the demons are actually the good guys, really, and humans are bad. No, it was humans were the bad guys all along. Right. I mean, honestly, if you were going through it and you were... You know, if you were in that position, it'd be a case of like, well, one guy says... You know, the god over here says, you know, who's been in exile all this time and claimed as being a demon, you know, claims to be a good guy, even though his realm is filled with fire and ash, and he summons demons through portals to corrupt humans and destroy the place. He's not exactly doing, you know, nice things with his influence. You know, it isn't like the demons came through and helped with humanitarian crises that were happening and handed out pamphlets telling everyone that, you know, Adyr ain't a bad guy and they should all convert and start their own little religious movement and, you know, fight back against the church that way. It's like, no, 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 they came through with axes and fire. You know, I don't think we can claim that Adyr is quite the nice guy either. But yeah, obviously the judges. I mean, we literally killed one of the judges. They've obviously become corrupt. So it's like, right, pick your poison. The scorching light of the sun, or the blazing inferno of Adyr, basically. And then there's the secret unblending that I don't quite know. I'm probably gonna. It's about as easy to follow as your typical Souls-like game, where hey, you only figure out the entire story if you go and read through all the item text and stuff like that. It's, you know, and discover all the secrets, and then if you can remember them all and piece them together chronologically in your mind, you might get somewhere. Which, no thanks. I'd much rather have just a easier to understand, blatantly obvious story. But no, that's not what we'll get. But anyway, not bad though, not bad. It was certainly some spectacular bosses though. I will say, having played it, I've heard that it's getting kind of middling reviews on Steam and in reviewers and things like that. Having played through it, I've really enjoyed it. I thought it was really fun. It is probably the most gorgeous looking game out at the moment currently. And not just like, ooh, graphical fidelity because Unreal Engine 5 and it's one of the first games using that engine. No, just the art direction and design is actually really solid, genuinely so. It's honestly, this looks far better than most of the things in, honestly, any of the Dark Souls games. You know, given that's its main competitor, yeah, it kind of wipes the floor with it. I would say the only thing that I would say could hold a candle up to this sort of thing is Elden Ring, which I would say that they're both about on par in terms of their art direction, this and Elden Ring, because they really have some stunning scenery and some really cool like imagery and things, and the whole like putting up the lamp and then it reveals an entirely different landscape that's kind of plastered over the top of what was there prior, and it kind of all warps and corrupts as you transition between the two worlds, is like a cherry on the cake. It really is. It's absolutely fantastic. And one thing I do love is, just like with Elden Ring, you know, you look somewhere, you can probably go there, and all the way through you have this giant tree in the sky that's kind of like the guiding beacon telling you where to go, and that's like the end game goal. So you can almost measure your progress by how close the tree is coming into view. But you've got a similar thing here with, on the landscape, you've got the giant hand in the distance just looming over everything all forebodingly. But then you've got the big sky beacons that are basically tracking your progress. You know, and again, you can look at anywhere on the map and you can probably go there. And you can literally walk from the highest peaks in the mountains in the divide, as you know, in the divide of those mountains, and you can just walk your way all the way back to where you started. I can walk from the top of the mountains down into the swamp where the big tree is. I can do that. It's not exactly open world like Elden Ring, it's very much linear and slowly opens itself up. You can't just go anywhere you want at the start. So it's not open world. It's kind of, it's done in the same way that, say, Dead Space is, you know, quote-unquote open world. It isn't. It slowly opens up as you go, or at least it does on the remake now. And at the end, once you've opened everything up, theoretically, yes, it is now, you can walk your way all the way around it and traverse all the way through from start to finish as if it were open world. I think that Souls-like games are still kind of finding the formula. That it's still not quite locked in yet, which is why I think it's quite interesting, because that means that they're all still trying different things out in the mix here. They're, you know, adding different mechanics. You know, it's like adding different ingredients to a meal. You know, they've not quite figured out exactly the perfect formula yet. So, and in keeping mixing it up, it keeps them interesting. Eventually, they'll, you know, kind of hit the nail on the head, and that's it. We'll just see a million clones come out, just like how Far Cry seems to be the same game every year. It'll eventually happen, but it'll be a while before it does yet. But yeah, I would say I prefer open world to something like this, but it's still been good, and again, it looks great. I can probably guess why it is struggling to get the best of reviews. If I were to point out a few problems, things that I think really hold it back, and it's a shame that they do, and honestly, a few of them are simple things like, okay, obviously there's technical issues here. We've seen them throughout. It's not crashing on the regular, but it's regular enough, you know? It's like, yeah, like I say, it's every like 2 or 3 hours or so that it's crashing, maybe more actually. Like today, I think in this last session, because I've kind of rushed to the end today, trying to finish it before my weekend's done, but it has probably been like a good 5 or 6 hours play session I've done, with a few little snack breaks in between the things. But you've unlocked a new class, the Radiant Purifier. So we can start with straight up just be like a priest. Right. We're going to continue current. We're not going to start anew, and I'll just continue on with what I was saying. Apparently you can new game plus from like a vestige anywhere. Restart game plus 0, new game plus 1. Yeah, so I'll probably not be doing that for a while though, if what I've heard is true. And we should have... She should have left us an item here. There we are. We'll head to Skyless though, and finish up there. But yes, so basically, if I were going to say these are the things that it fails at, yeah, the obvious elephant in the room is performance. It's not like it's a huge amount of performance issues, but they are rather severe. They're severe enough that you notice when you're playing. And the thing is, I'm running a pretty beefy rig. If I'm having performance issues, someone who's not running a brand new, bought in the last few years, big beefy rig, well, they're going to be really struggling. And I mean, severely struggling. We're talking just... Yeah, I honestly reckon that in the next... You know, if you are trying to run this on a sort of mid-ranged gaming PC, it will be struggling on medium, and you'll probably have certain settings on low. I mean, I've had to put the the draw distance on medium and a few other things turned off, and that I'm just about managing. I will say though, I am running it 4K with ray tracing. My graphics card is graded to do 4K with ray tracing. It says it on the box, and it has like 16 gigabytes of video RAM to do it, which, you know, it should be able to. Cost enough. But it's not being quite able to do to manage on the higher settings. Like, it's a bit disappointing, but again, it's mainly the crashing and the stuttering, and it seems to be intermittent. Like, it doesn't stutter all the time. Like, this is running very clearly at a smooth frame rate. Until, well, then it stuttered because it was saving. You can see a little save thing coming up in the bottom right. Probably saved because we were moving toward the door. It probably thought, oh, we're going to transition areas here, but for the most part, it's running buttery smooth. Then we get into combat, and it's mostly buttery smooth until there's more, you know, oh, there's, you know, 5 or 6 enemies and a few particle effects going off, and suddenly the animations are freaking out, and you're getting crashes, and the biggest bug we've had is with the crow boss, wasn't it? That crow, where literally if we looked at him, there was a glitch that triggered on AMD based, AMD based cards. So anything from AMD manufacturers would just, the moment you looked at the boss, it just melted your graphics card apparently. Just literally stalls your card and forces the game to close, which is a bit of an issue. Right, so that was an issue, but thankfully you can get through it by not looking at the boss. But Jesus Christ, that, I would say that's borderline a game-breaking bug. It's not, because you can kinda finagle your way around it, but playing the game properly now is impossible on an AMD graphics card, because that boss, well, screws you over. It's like, yeah, it's so the performance issues aside, though, it does look absolutely gorgeous. I genuinely think what's probably happened, given that this is one of the first games, especially AAA games, coming out on the Unreal Engine 5, it's probably just happened that they've become like the unwitting guinea pigs, you know, beta testers for the Unreal Engine 5. They've probably just become the unwitting testers for it. Epic are probably patching all of these things up as they go. They'll probably be in contact with them, looking at what's happening, because this is meant to be the poster child for their new engine. And they were even advertising it and stuff when they were trying to show like clips of the engine working and that at their their expositions and things. So it's like, yeah, I have no doubt at all that they will both be working on this to get it performing properly, but it should have been like that at launch. And it performs perfectly fine for the most part until then your enemies come on screen, it stutters, it crashes. But aside from that, which again it is a big problem, I'd be very careful if you're running a mid-range machine on this, cause just try it out in the first few areas. Don't let your playtime go too long, so you can still get that Steam refund if it crashes. But the other two issues, I would say, one would be one's a small thing that would be fixable, not a massive deal. It's like the enemy variety, and other games are guilty of doing this as well. You know, pretty much every boss that isn't one of the main bosses gets reused as basically an elite enemy from that point on. You could even argue that it's good games design, because they let you face it in a boss arena style and really get used to that enemy and how they play and what you've got to do to beat them, before then putting a a weakened version of them and mixing them in with the enemies from then on. So you could argue that it gives you a good practice fighting the enemies. And acts as a bit of a, you know, are you this tall to ride sort of thing. You know, a bit of a gatekeeper on the next area, making sure you can beat the type of enemies in that area before entering. So there's an argument to say that it's clever and it also saves resources. There's another argument to say that it's lazy and they should have designed more enemies. It's a bit of perspective really, this one. But there are certain things like the dogs are a brilliant example. There's the regular dogs, there's the dogs that have armour on them, there's the dogs that breathe fire, there's the frost dogs that are actually more like wolves but they're still dogs. And then there's those weird, the ones in the swamp aren't really dogs. Like, the frost, like this is the thing as well, all the dogs do have different attack patterns, right? They all have different attack patterns. They use at least slightly different models. And the ones in the swamps obviously are the most different as well, because they use a completely different model. They look almost like little fungal toad things that jump at you and spurt out gas everywhere. But they are basically dogs. But that's an example of the enemy reusing enemies being done well. They've got different elemental attacks, some of them have some different moves put in there, like the frost ones do a little frost area attack and dash backwards, so that to try and get to them you have to go through it, damaging yourself. That's a pretty good one. Fire ones just breathe fire. They've actually got a simpler move set than all the others, the fire ones. They just breathe fire. But it's a very high damage attack if you don't know how to deal with it. So the first time you're fighting them, they're quite intimidating. And the swamp ones, obviously, they create poison clouds. And again, they've all got fairly different models. So that's an example of it done well, but the examples of it done poorly are again, it just reusing bosses straight up. Like, right, we at one point fight a fire witch when you enter Lower Calrath. You fight a fire witch, who then, after that, turns up as a regular enemy, and then in the frost area in the mountains, turns up as a frost variant. And it's basically the same model, but blue. Right, that's an example of it not done particularly well. But the best example of it not being done well is the, I think they're called manglers. The guy with the two axes, one in each hand, who just runs at you. So there's the regular mangler, and then there's the one that's on fire and has fire attacks. And they're reused absolutely bloody everywhere, these, and not only are they constantly reused, they're even reused in areas where it doesn't even make sense. You know, they're just bloody everywhere, and it's like, why are they throwing them at me? And they keep just increasing the amount of health they have. Like I said, there's one variant which gets fire attacks. So okay, that's different. They've made it different by adding some fire attacks. But then it's just, they keep reusing both of those then and just adding more health and more damage. There's a lot of enemies like it, like the guys with the sticks that shoot little radiant bolts, or then there's the ones that shoot fireballs. You know, it's there's a lot of enemy reusing. For a long game like this, you would expect a bit of it. It happens in Elden Ring. Elden Ring even reuses bosses. Like the Godskin bosses, that fat one and the like snake-like one. You fight them each on their own, then you fight them each together several times. And there's even parts of the game where they're not even classed as bosses. Toward the end, they just show up as regular enemies a few times, right? it's like, right, how many Godskin duos do I have to fight? And they each have varying amounts of health and damage. Some of them are worse than others, and it's the same model with the same moves. So it's you know, we can't go and, you know, it's not like Dark Souls and Elden Ring and all the From Software games that you'd compare this to are over there looking all innocent. No, they do the same thing, and in some cases it's done far worse in them. But they are doing it here. It is noticeable. It's difficult to get, you know, an enemy for absolutely everything, but what I would say is less use of dude with axes and dude with pointy stick or stick with bells or whatever. Just less guys with sticks and guys with axes. I think, and when you increase the health, I would definitely say add like some armor onto the model. Just stick some armor on. Just some bits of metal. Oh look, he's tougher, he's got more armor on. At least you can know then. And it makes sense why they're getting tougher throughout the game, you know. If at the beginning they're in rags, but by the end they're in plate metal, you understand, oh, that's why he's tougher. Right, great. Other than that, the last thing I would say is, my only other gripe would be with the combat. It is very lock-on heavy. You have to be locked on or you will not hit your attacks. You can swing and swing, but if you are not locked on, it is very difficult. I think what part of the problem seems to be is, so I can move over here and we'll just start swinging. But yeah, if we start swinging and then I want to swing to a different side, I can't really. It's a bit, how to put it, because when I've been doing that, like you can, you kind of can do these attacks, but they have to be fairly precise to hit. We've seen that even when I've been locked on sometimes, it's not been hitting. I've been trying to think. What exactly it is with the movement when you're not locked on that doesn't sit right. I'd probably have to go and play like God of War and then this and then compare. I think what it is it's just that you can't really, you can move during certain points. Right? You can kind of move during certain points of the attack. But once it's kind of locked in, if I do an attack now and then swipe to the left, you can kind of see I start attacking and then it suddenly goes left all at once. It's not like I can smoothly aim roughly where I need it to be. And there's a lot of like overhead attacks. The big swings like that, I bet you can really aim quite handily without locking on, but it's the big overheads that have to be precise that you struggle with. But again, even the other attacks, it's like, yeah, I can kind of guide the sweeping attacks, but the overheads are very difficult due to the position you need. Playing other games, and there's basically the way I've seen melee done in games, and the examples I will always use will be something like God of War and then something like For Honor. Right? In For Honor, it is basically a dueling system, and it's all very, very lock-on heavy, but you will only ever be fighting a few enemies at once, and it allows you to block to the sides while focusing on the target you're locked onto, meaning that you can fend off other attackers while focusing on the one person that you're trying to attack. But it is primarily built around dueling, and it works. You only face an enemy or two at a time typically, and it's really built towards dueling. You've got directional attacks, directional blocks, different grabs and heavy attacks and other things, and you have to choose the direction of the attacks to go against the direction that they're blocking in, and you can parry and do other cool stuff, right? And it really works for those one-on-one duels that you're doing. I'm just going to check here because we did grab a lot of these around. No, it's still only got one.
Let Arius's will be done.
But yeah, so it's essentially you are in a duel in For Honor, and it's like I say, it's lock on heavy. You need to be locked on. You can't really fight otherwise. Even certain moves require you to be attacking from certain directions and things like that are in your moveset. So it's at that point, right? But this obviously isn't like that, right? Your lock on is just there to make sure it guides you attacking, because it does. Your attack needs to be guided in. You know, you're almost like hitting a nail with me. You know, I feel almost like I'm trying to hit the head of a nail with my hammer, and it has to be quite precise. So you need the lock on. You can't do it without. God of War's designed around clearing, you know, like 6 or 7 enemies at once, all while, you know, just defending and parrying, blocking and things. It has an excellent combat system for dealing with groups of enemies. So basically, in conclusion, I would just say its combat is not geared towards handling these groups of enemies from Umbral and things like that. But yeah, I feel like, generally speaking, a good combat system tends to allow you to be able to switch between both quite easily. I tend to prefer God of War's style of combat system. And, you know, being able to like animation cancel into rolls and things. I know that these Souls-like games are always very deliberate, so I wouldn't expect like animation cancelling and stuff. But I think that as it currently stands, you can barely hit anything without locking on. And sometimes in combat, as we've seen, especially if you stood on stairs, especially if you're against wraiths in particular, it really struggles to hit enemies. And sometimes, like we've seen, the head of this hammer just go straight up through enemies sometimes, because I'm slightly higher elevated than they are on a staircase. Or it's a wraith, they've just come out of teleport and the hammer just goes through. Which has killed me a few times. On the enemy variety as well, I've just had a little thought as well. I think probably the biggest thing they could do for enemy variety would be to increase the types of enemies in Umbral. Because I will say, whereas everything else it's kind of like, okay, we get it, they reuse a lot of stuff, but at least they're changing like at least they're changing the the attack soap, or they're giving them a slightly different model or something like that. With the enemies in Umbral, they straight up just increase the health and damage of them as you go through the game based on the area you're in. That's what it seems to do. So it's the same enemies, but just, yeah. Do not know why. Genuinely do not know why, but it's just the same enemies all the way through in Umbral. I can list them off. You know, you've got the little zombie dudes that show up, the guys in cloaks that, unlike the other ones, don't have sticks. You know, but they do just shoot bolts of wither damage at you, kind of like the guys with sticks that shoot radiant damage or infernal damage later on. Basically the same. It's like the Umbral equivalent of them. You've got them little imp things that can fly about a little bit, that tend to jump out and grab you and drag you to Umbral. I hate them. You've got the the Mothmen that are just the most annoying enemies in the game. Quite possibly. Except they're not. The ones that are the most annoying are the Wraiths. And the Wraiths are just arseholes. They really are. And yeah, that reminds me. We've not tried to beat a Red Wraith yet, have we? We should. I should do that before we finish here. We'll have a go against a Red Wraith. I'll probably go spend my vigour though first, if you don't mind. But yeah, I think they could probably do with increasing the enemy variety in Umbral at least. You're there so often, because you're there no matter where you are. If you go into Umbral, you will face those enemies. So whereas another area might only need 3 or 4 different new enemies to feel varied, in Umbral you should probably have, you know, more like a dozen or so. Oh, and yeah, there's the big face head dude. Okay, so what's that, like 6 or so? 6 or 7 or something, I think I listed there, but yeah, that's all of them. And there's the bloody mimics that honestly, they are incredibly frustrating because there's no hint that they're there. There really isn't. There's not enough of a hint. There's no hint whatsoever. Right, how much do I need? 2, 1, 2, 3. That's like 5. Nearly 6 foul, but not quite. So I don't need to use 2 of these. But I can certainly use that and that. And then I need like 1,000. Right. I need a smidge more. Sorry, just you know what? Sell something. Sell something that's barely worth anything. I need what? Like 200 and a bit.
Ah, you again.
Okay, sell like yeah. Oh wow, I'm that close. Got it. We've got a level up. Overall though, again, as much as I'm saying that that's my critique of it, everything else, like, again, the game has actually been highly enjoyable. I would easily recommend it to people. I think that it seems to have a lot of the problems that the first one had back when that came out, is what I would say for this. Right, I'm just gonna warp over to somewhere where we can probably... If I remember rightly, the Red Wraith cannot go... He disappears when you go near a vestige, so we want to... Oop. Those performance issues there. Not massive though. Not massive, but again, it's noticeable enough. I mean, again, just that it does that. You know, it looks one way and then you do that and boom. Anyone who says it isn't a gorgeous game is out of their damn mind. Right. But yeah, it's... Honestly, I would say that... The game is... It's absolutely fantastic, it's spectacular, I've loved every moment, but I can see why it's getting middling reviews. Personally, I'd probably give it like an 8 out of 10. I'd say, you know, it gets okay, we use a lot of enemies. The combat could be a bit better. Honestly, the combat gripe is probably my biggest gripe, actually. I can put up with a few hitches with the performance, as long as it's performing well most of the time, and when it does crash, it's just a quick, oh no, it crashed the game, and I restart it, and it auto-saved like 2 minutes ago. I honestly don't mind that. It's when you're crashing and it's like, oh no, there goes, 30 minutes of progress, and it's also, blue screened my computer or something stupid. Okay, that's absolutely unacceptable. But looking like this, performing like this, perfectly fine. The main issues for me are probably going to be around, the issues with combat. I mean, I might as well take the opportunity here to just kind of... We'll try some combat where I'm not locked onto things. Like I say, it's not bad when they're staying still. It's not that you can't do it. Like there, it's kind of... I didn't even pick it up. You can see what I mean. It's like when you're locked on, you can't just sidestep and dodge. But when you aren't locked on, you absolutely can. But yeah, just the visual design, while the combat does have things that are lacking, the actual punch and the weight of the weapons and how satisfying it is all on par. It's all fantastic. I would just say that it needs to be a bit easier to hit enemies while not locked on. Because one thing I would always do when I'm playing God of War, I'm often fighting this way while the camera's that way. Yeah, you can kind of see that it's not great. The sweeping attacks are obviously a bit better. I think what helps with God of War is sometimes like certain attacks, like the heavies, will almost like target lock the nearest enemy in that and just smack into them and so on. But again, overall, I can kind of see why it's getting middling reviews, but it's doing so much right, and I think as far as Souls games go, this is honestly probably the closest thing I've seen to a real competitor. I've gone deep on the lore, the place looks amazing, it's all got named locations, it kind of sticks in your mind a bit. I mean, I know the names Calrath, Sunless Sky, Morningstead. What was this castle? Belmouth or something? They don't all stick. But, and Skyless Bridge, that sort of thing, it's... And it does suffer from the same problems, though, as Souls like you can kind of see that they've very much taken Dark Souls, copied its homework, and then they've added their own unique twist, which is the umbral and the transitioning and this world on top of another world thing, right? That's all fantastic, but it kind of needed it could have probably tried to differentiate itself a little smidgeling more, maybe, here and there. But I think honestly staying true to that formula is probably why it's been as successful as it is. I wouldn't just say this is some kind of cheap pretender to it. It's like, no, this is honestly like genuine competition to it. And this world isn't just for show while you do puzzles. I will be honest, I do wish though that this boss that showed up, if it like almost scaled the boss to be, what would I say? Can we cast anything here before it shows up? Because we're probably going to want to. We'll cast a heal area. Using lock-on mechanics here. Our major issue here is going to be that we're not allowed to heal while he's around. Good news is he barely does damage to me now. I could almost trade blows here. Let's just get rid of that guy. Lower my block just then. One thing we can do though, and this is why we're doing it next to a vestige. Go to a vestige. Oh, he gets his health back though. That makes a lot more sense now. I thought I could cheese it then. Ah, I thought of that then, did they? Right there, I'm having struggles, even getting it to lock on. That's the sanctuary. Ow. You sod. We've got a Mothman as well now. Right. On the plus side, it wipes out all the enemies as well. Does that. Ah, no. That's the other thing as well though. The lock-on when it misses. When it just doesn't work out. He's popping up like a shark now. Does he just not pop out anymore now? We're not going to be able to face him. Is he just going like, you've cheesed me one too many times? Oh, so it has to hit us with that attack. Well, that's a bit unfortunate. I genuinely wish that there was an option to almost like what's the word here? We got stuck in the scene a bit there. I wish there were a way to almost I was blocking that. and it's not locking on me. Like, yeah, this part is difficult because we can't, like, it's cheesing the lock-on system. We would need somewhere where it's not going to spawn umbral enemies apart from him, but I don't think such a place exists. Which is unfortunate. I know there's definitely places in the game that spawn extras, but I don't think there's anywhere that... Usually the places that don't spawn usually the places that spawn less don't spawn any, like near vestiges and certain areas like that. But I've said all about what I want to say about it. I'll quickly just check in here. Because I know that this is a where we've put our ceiling, just up the up here. We can go in here in Umbral, but I don't think it actually counts as being in... Oh, it does. But I don't think it will spawn enemies here. If it does, then I've not seen them. But anyway, I've said pretty much everything I want to say on it. We've done everything. I'm gonna probably call it here for the episode. I will see if this actually... Oh yeah, there you go. I thought as much. So you go up beyond these stairs and the eye goes out. I thought I noticed that when we were doing the cutscene and that. So enemies will probably spawn down here, but not up there. Which means that we probably can't fight him here and try to cheese it and just get him one-on-one. And yep, lo and behold, we're starting to now see an enemy or two spawning in. That said, I might try it here. It's that big that I can probably outrun like the Mothmen and the regular enemies and just try to get him one-on-one. So I might try it here as well. We'll give it a look. And yep, it looks like there's probably going to be Mothmen arriving now. Yeah. I don't know why, they feel weaker in this area though. Not by much, but just a little. Like I can one-tap them now. Like the basic ones, I can one-tap them. Me and that Mothman, they're dying, what, like 3? It is a problem with the enemies like being scaled up and down as you go through the game. You do get this problem of I don't really know how much health they have. I couldn't tell you how much it takes to kill a Mothman. Because it depends. Is it an early game Mothman or a late game Mothman? I don't know. And yeah, even the basics are down in 1 now. They were 2 before. I don't know what's caused that to happen. Is it that... Did I get a level in Radiance, I think? Did I put one in? That might have nudged me over the damage threshold to get a 1-tap. But yeah, so it does cause an issue around that. Having like, you know, reused all the enemies this much. Looks like he's about to arrive any minute now. Another thing as well that I kind of might not have mentioned as well, again with it being, you know, Souls-like, it falls into the same trappings of, you know, the story is hard to follow unless again you read all the item descriptions, and lots of things are held behind secrets, and the quests especially, like, for the love of God, give me like a quest log. Even if it doesn't give me a marker on a map or a pointer to it, like I wouldn't expect them to do that ever, and it would kind of take you out of the game with the kind of games these are. But For the love of God. Like, some of the quests in this, you would never think to do what you had to do to beat those quests. The texture. It's not like there's no enemies spawn here. There's definitely fewer. Get that light damage on. Okay, we've got an enemy. Get rid of him. So we need a clear. We need to be able to clearly acquire the target here. The moth is going to be difficult to deal with. So this is why we came to a big room. No, this guy. Why was it? Oh yeah, we can't. See, before that was like I beat one a few moments ago, and that guy were 3-tap. You can begin to understand my frustration with the varying difficulty and health of enemies there. And by the time you've got this guy locked on, you get that happening. Go. We're gonna need this. Lock on. Oh. And it's struggling to lock on now. Don't you sodding dare. Ah. We haven't got heals left. We can't catch Sanctuary yet. You cheeky sod. Right. Got him. Heal. Little shit. Sanctuary. We're gonna have to kill these first. Even when you're locking on, it's like, okay, whether you hit or not is intermittent at best. Because the enemies love doing that. Little dodges and things. We've got it though. And better yet is that in the meantime we get triple vigor. And every one of these 35,000 for killing a god. We might get that again. My understanding of how this works as well, because I did like look this up, how you're supposed to actually do this. And yeah, look, they're 2 shots again. Maybe it's like the further along the dread gauge is, the harder they get, perhaps. Might be something to do with it. No, that one died in 1. So yeah, it's honestly dodgy at the best of times. It is still a fun mechanic though, and it does mean that it's not like the land of the dead isn't dangerous and it's just there for sure. No, it's got actual meaning to it and a bit of teeth. But again, I could do with more enemy variety, that sort of thing, but oh, we've got one of these on us now. And his hits are going funny. You little... Leave. And that's hitting me. My understanding of how this works is you get so many minutes then, after killing him, of being able to just grind away without him showing up. And then he shows back up. Anyway, minus a few quests that have got screwed up, which again, it's like, how are you supposed to know? And most of the time you talk to him, like that one with Stormond, I expected him to show up later. Because the first time I didn't watch the full quest guide through, because I didn't want spoilers, I just kind of looked up to where it was, where I'd got to. So I just did it, and then kind of, it's like, oh no, you had to go back to him, otherwise he just disappears randomly. Oh, you completed the boss before him? Whoopsie. And then you can miss it. You know, there's stuff that's entirely missable. And it's one of those where it's kind of like, when you're making a good... when you're making a good game, you kind of... You know, with these sorts of Souls-like games, you have to accept that players are going to miss things. I understand that much. Elden Ring is designed knowing that not everyone will... Like, most people will not see every single bit of content. Because there's so much and it's hidden and there's little quests that it doesn't define to, but they could at least give us like a journal saying like, oh, I talked to so-and-so. I should go to this place and look for them there. You know, knowing that, like, the prisoner is a perfect example. You are unlikely to... It's like you're unlikely to go back to Pieta until way later in the game. Until it's way later that you'll go back through there. Probably when you're tracking the Iron Wayfarer into Upper Calrath to seize the rune of Adyr back from him. That's probably when you'll pass through again. And it is way later, it's very easily missed. The Stormont thing, it's like, oh, I'll probably talk to him later on as we get to where he's going to where this quest gets handed in. Nope, you have to talk to him down in next to that tree, or you'll miss him. And if you do the boss, it's like literally doing the main quest cuts off the side quests, so you can't go back and do them afterwards, which is antithesis to the design of most games, and it's a bit... Anyway, I think I've got all my gripes, my praise out of the way. It's gorgeous looking, brilliant lore and a wonderful world, all neatly packaged and everything. I've really enjoyed it, but a few little gripes would, I say, hold it at like an 8 out of 10. The length of this thing as well is absolutely enormous. Do I try for that item before we call it? I'm thinking how I would even get to it. Oh, we'd probably have to fight. Right, we'll leave it there. If I do, I'll go back for it a million times. But the one thing that might nudge this up, let's say that in a few months they've gotten all the performance issues out of the way. I hear they're doing some really good things with New Game Plus, which is why I've not started it now. Supposedly there's going to be modifiers and things for different runs and such. And so that's going to be quite interesting apparently as well when you go through New Game Plus. It slowly starts removing the vestiges from the game. Which another thing I love is the vestiges, how we're all like fallen heroes and they've got lore to them. You know, just that I can do... Who was this person? Who was that person? Oh, it's Ferrez the Chard. Oh, this one's the Forgotten Guardian. Or the Numb Witch. Lydia the Numb Witch. Sebastian. Oliver, you know. I do like that. But... it's little things that are stopping it from getting, you know, little things, the performance issues, stopping it from getting a 10 in my opinion. In pure length, I think I've been playing this 60-70 hours or so now. It's got girth to it. It's not a small game. They've really done a good job with that. I hope that they bring out another. I hoped with Lords of the Fallen, the original, that they would bring out another. This has fallen into similar trappings, but it's way further along. I know it's by a different company and everything, and it's practically, they might as well have called it a different name at this point. It's not Lords of the Fallen, the original. It's the only thing in common is that the original had Rogar and the demon god Adyr, who was already slain then as well. But this has been great. I really hope they bring out another, and because the thing is you do want games to have competition. Without competition they grow stagnant. If From Software remain top dog forever and no one challenges them, their games will get steadily less and less impressive and eventually worse. We need other people to strive to do it, and they're doing a damn good job here. You know, I think this is definitely second place in the Souls-like titles at the moment, and Deck 13, which have recently they've recently released a game and it's not done well. I think like it was called Atlas Fallen or something. Apparently the combat system is just balked and it's a bit uninspired with the style of the game and things, but they did a really good job with the Surge and the idea of like dismembering like the robotic enemies to get their parts and things, and then just stitching them all together on your own little exosuit thing. Really good ideas there. So I really hope that this gets another game, and that they take this and run with it and it gets even better and more amazing. Maybe next time they might do open world. They might not, honestly. Either works. This works, Elden Ring works. They're both great. But yeah, I would love to see that. And you know, when you like something, you know, it's like, okay, Elden Ring might be like a, you know, a massive chocolate gatto, but that doesn't mean that I don't like chocolate ice cream. You know, I like both because they're both great. So that's what I would say. Because I remember with the original, everyone was saying it was budget Dark Souls and not as good and no one should play it, and it's like, no, all that did, all that does is discourage people from attempting to make similar games. The genre and the industry don't, you know, that your favourite genre will not advance unless you let other people into it and let the genre, like the library of games in that genre grow and let them experiment and things. It has to happen, otherwise it's going to stagnate, and you don't want, you know, Dark Souls to become, you know, like Call of Duty but with medieval weaponry. You know, you don't want that to happen. It won't, you know, knowing how From Software are now, but you know, give it 20 years of them making the same game and it might. Anyway, this has been Lords of the Fallen. Bit of a long rant about it, but honestly it's a long rant because I really do like the game and I really do actually care about it. You know, it's stung a bit to see the reviews coming in for this and being quite bad. I'm probably going to go and look at a few now because I've just been like looking at the scores and not reading into it because I didn't want any spoilers whatsoever. because I've been really enjoying this. But yeah, I'm gonna look forward to actually going through those and getting an idea of what everyone else sort of thought now. Probably spend my evening doing that. Have a few YouTube reviews on while I sup a cup of tea and play some strategy games or something. Thank you very much for watching though. More on the channel soon. Oh man, by the time this comes out, damn, it might be close to Christmas by the time this is out. I was uploading these the other day and it was... I am weeks ahead because I've been playing a load of it, so there's a massive backlog. But thank you very much for watching. There's more coming up on the channel. I believe by the time this is... Hell, I'm wondering if this will finish first or if Last Train Home will finish first. Which one will be longer with the amount of episodes I've got of this in the backlog. Because Last Train Home, I will tell you now, I have yet to start that at the end of the finish of this, but we'll see how it goes. Thank you very much for watching though. If you like this, I've been on about it in the episode, but there's a playthrough of Elden Ring on the channel. There's some other games as well that you might be interested in. Feel free to have a peruse, and I'll see you in future videos. I'll see you then.